All right. Now that one tank is emptied and the other is filled, let's get back to it. And that's what happened to me, was that when I hit the 21 years and 50 years old, I'm like, wait a minute, let me get this straight.
Right.
You're going to pay me $72,000 to not come in here?
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Yeah, that's what happened in teaching.
I had
At that point, at 35 years, I could go, and it would have cost me money to stay.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean,
Well, now, so you left,
well,
and then
my process of leaving was kind of fun too. Once
okay.
again, I've got to make my mark.
Mm.
I had I had 8 weeks of leave stored up.
Mm-hmm.
There in the government system, it's not you get 2 weeks a year and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You get out so many hours per pay period that you can
Okay.
bank.
Okay.
And at the end of the calendar year, you cannot have more than 240 hours.
Okay.
You have to use that or you're going to lose it. It's going to cut
Right.
January
I
1st.
understand.
It's going to get
Yep.
cut back down to 240.
I understand.
Well,
Yeah.
coming into that, I had whatever 8 weeks totals
Mm-hmm.
out to.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm retiring at the end of November,
Mm-hmm.
get this. When you become 50,
Mm-hmm.
it's the end of the month where you've turned 50.
Okay.
And that's for insurance purposes. So there's no
Okay.
lapse in coverage, no
Yep. Yep.
transition in
Yep.
pay, things of that nature. My birthday is November 1st. If I was born on Halloween, I could have been out on my birthday. So, but anyway, I've got 8 weeks of leave left that I told my boss, I said, hey, I'm not losing this. I don't want to be taxed on it twice when I get a
Mm-hmm.
big check at the end if I cash it out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, be able to find a home and get
Yep.
set up and be
Yep.
paid for it.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, absolutely. We'll make that happen. Don't worry. So I told you I had to make my mark.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody at headquarters got wind of that
Uh-oh.
and said you cannot take, they created a policy on the spot that went out to the entire Secret Service. You cannot take more than 1 month, 4 weeks of leave at any one time without the approval of the assistant director in your division. So being in the field office, I was in the investigations. The assistant director for investigations would have had to personally approve my
Right.
2 months of
Right.
leave.
Yeah.
So I take this to my boss and he just rolls his eyes. He goes, are you fucking kidding me? He goes, wait a minute. They can't do that. It's your leave.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, we'll get you scheduled for most of it with a gap in between.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's too late for them to say no,
Mm-hmm.
we will close that gap in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
except for one day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a split. So some computer program ain't going to kick it out.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, have money available. Because remember, I'm in LA. I moved to Tampa.
I understand.
Have money available. If you've got to get on a plane, you can do it.
Right. Right.
That was the last I heard from anybody.
No kidding.
And this was another thing that is Secret Service wide. Everybody's been saying it's got to change. There's this week long, maybe a little less than a week long course about preparing for retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Guess when I got that course?
After you retired.
In that 8-week period.
Right.
I sat with my my work iPhone and a laptop out on my back patio,
Right.
taking that course here in Tampa.
Yeah.
Already mentally retired.
Right. Right.
That is something that should have been given to us in what's called SATC, Special Agent Training Course, our
Mhm.
academy.
Mhm.
And that's something that should be updated throughout your career.
Mhm.
But because it deals with like financial planning,
Mhm.
the government doesn't want to take the liability of you making a bad decision
Right.
with investments and then blaming it on them.
Right. Right.
We sign non-disclosure agreements and waivers and all kinds of other things for everything else, not holding
But
them
that.
liable.
Yeah.
And we get what was the one thing that was funny for a while? We got at like this time of year, we would have to go on this automated system that we get update training on to learn how to mow the lawn.
Okay.
They can teach us how to mow the lawn, but they can't teach us how to save money.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so
So
what I've
many.
always
Yeah.
told people was that working at the Secret Service and kind of sort of in federal government in general,
Mhm.
I've learned how not to manage people. And we talked about this at the beginning,
Mhm.
learning from mistakes. Similarly, when I was a baseball umpire, we would have cassette tapes. You remember those?
Yes.
Of recorded speeches where major league officials, baseball, NBA, whatever, were at officials association end of season banquets.
Mhm. Okay.
And they were the keynote speaker at the banquet.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And a major league umpire named Jerry Davis, who's actually from the Philadelphia area down in Havertown, uh, said, I love watching other crews work. I love watching other people do things that I'm also interested in because you can learn so much from them. Not just when they do something you like, but when they do something you don't like. And that's how I learned to manage people now, was watching the Secret Service screw it up.
Wow.
You
Are
know,
there
I've got a
bullet
friend.
points? Are there bullet points to what you've learned?
Oh, yeah. I've got a friend who is a senior manager, a big boss. Because of his situation, I can't say who or where. He's been home since last summer getting a big boss six-figure salary, much more than what I was making. And I topped off at like 160.
Mhm.
He's making more than that up until his upcoming retirement date to not come into work
Mhm.
because he caught our current director discriminating against him for promotional purposes. And he called her out on it. And that was the agreement that they came to so he wouldn't sue the Secret Service and win ungodly amounts of money.
Gotcha.
He's essentially already retired,
Gotcha.
but not getting a pension. He's getting his full salary
Gotcha. Wow.
for a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm glad he's getting that,
Mhm.
but under no circumstances should somebody that high up have made an inappropriate decision like that. But there it is, and that's only it. When you asked about bullet points, oh God, yeah.
Well,
Whether
that should
it's
be
nepotism, everybody in the Secret Service is related to somebody.
okay.
I had a sponsor of sorts
Mhm.
who got me my first interview and had hooks at headquarters that he was able to call and say, hey, how's this guy's application doing?
Mhm.
That's to a degree, that's life. It's
Yes, it
networking.
is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
But I also still had to check all the other boxes.
Sure.
There are clearly people who are not
Well,
able to check those boxes.
there are so many other topics since you retired. I mean, here you are, the creator of your own radio station. How did you get from protective services to broadcasting?
I'd actually already been in it back in college. And I got back into it because in my last years in the Secret Service, I started day trading and investing in cryptocurrencies. And I just did well. I wanted to share that.
Okay.
So I created a YouTube channel called the Doggy Traders, inspired by, my dogs. And also there were two dog oriented cryptocurrencies. One is called Dogecoin, Doge. It kind of
Okay.
looks like doggy.
Mm-hmm.
And another one is called Shiba Inu, which is a Japanese breed of dog.
Okay.
So I created I've got a coin logo with the head, the dog head that's on the coin looks like a combination of my two mastiffs, Moby and Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Moby passed away a year ago, but I see a lot of Moby in that, and I see a lot of Matrix in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to share that. I wanted to share the successes that I had trading and investing. That morphed into podcasting. And because of Zach coming along and just some of you shouldn't be day trading if you're like pissed at the world. So I've taken time off from that.
Okay.
But a year ago, I just got so, speaking of pissed, I just got so pissed at listening to Dan Bongino, who was a former
Okay.
Secret Service agent,
Okay.
then a commentator on Fox News, Tucker
Okay.
Carlson. These people are
Okay.
flat out lying about
Yeah.
what's happening in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Tucker Carlson admitted that he hates Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Now here he is still kissing his ass.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I've got to throw my hat into this ring.
Mm-hmm.
And I started up the middle, which, again, on the political spectrum, it's, takes a little bit, as we say, takes a little bit from the right and from the left. It started taking off. I started really enjoying doing it. I said, well, what can I do to make this better?
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at possibly getting into, sending it to internet radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I see what the easiest and probably most successful and more immediate route is going to be. And so I started my own station.
The station. Mm-hmm.
Now also circling back to the at least attempt in humility. I didn't want to be the only
Right.
programming on this station. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
Howard Stern.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started reaching out to folks like you,
Mm-hmm.
David Beckmeyer, and
Mm-hmm.
so many others, and said, hey, do you want to share your podcast in effort to grow your audience?
Mm-hmm.
I forget who it was. If it was maybe Corey, who's no longer with us, or David. Somebody asked about, well, how are we going to get credit if somebody listens to my podcast on your station?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to get credit for the download or for the stream that they would if they were watching it through Spotify or wherever
Okay.
else.
Okay.
I said, well, promote it. Let them know where you're at so they make that switch. I thought about that and I said, well, that's not going to keep me with having listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So how else can I bring people to the station? And that's why I encourage people like David Beckmeyer and Glenn Jackson to do live shows on Yergz Radio.
Mm-hmm.
So that there is a reason for people to keep coming back to the station.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's morphed into a second station. We now also train people. You can come here to this studio. We have two playlists on Talk TV 24, our other YouTube channel that's just for podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
So it is becoming a certain level of a business. It's not cash positive yet, but we'll get there.
What's your favorite part?
I guess seeing everybody's growth.
Mm-hmm.
When I see listeners go up at certain times, oh, that's because Be Inspired's playing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see that net, in that case, expanding beyond Boyertown.
So what I have seen more recently is a rainbow station.
Yep.
Or something. Talk to me about that.
So once I started Yergz Radio, to be a music station, I have to pay a fee to license to play, somebody else's music. Right. It's how they get royalties.
Yep.
I didn't want to have that extra expense.
Right.
And I wasn't there for that anyway. Up the Middle doesn't play music. It's a political podcast.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And all the other podcasts that I was recruiting, as you and I discussed before, were all very positive in nature, in their emotion. That wasn't intended. It's just podcasts that I liked, and that's how they all turned out. And then I just started getting a little bit more entrepreneurial with it. I thought, well, if this is working out, starting a radio station, what other demographics, would I need or would need me to get a station for them?
Right.
One was the LGBT community.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I created a group, a chat group, that is the only group on Facebook for LGBT broadcasters and podcasters.
Whoa.
So Rainbow Radio is the station, and LGBTQIA is the group. L stands for LGBT. G stands for gay. B stands for broadcasters. T stands for terrestrial. The Q is actually an ampersand for and. The I, instead of whatever it is in the LGBTQIA, I don't even know what that one is. But for mine, it's internet. And A is alliance. Broadcasters Alliance. And it's the only group on Facebook for LGBT broadcasters and podcasters.
That's fantastic.
So the third one will eventually be a sports station. All of these, like the tagline for Rainbow Radio is serving the LGBT locally, globally, and everywhere in between. Similarly, I want to be able to do local high school and college sports. Not me, but, if somebody in Boyertown wants to go back to doing the Boyertown baseball games, that's my goal, is to once again have a station that airs the Bears, but also do that, nationally for other communities as well. And then because it's on internet radio, and like I said at the beginning, we're developing an app. You don't have to be in the actual terrestrial radio listening market to be able to hear your son's game or your daughter's lacrosse game or field hockey game or softball game, whatever.
So do you have connections here in Boyertown with the sports people?
Hey, gang, if you haven't figured out by now, we're doing a series. So we're going to take a break, but then come right back with the next episode.